gets in the way of beginning again in love? What gets in the way of grace? Em, our intern minister, and I have been comparing notes and have been amazed at how full the local yoga and fitness studios are at this beginning of January. Full of people beginning to stretch and exercise again in the new year. And we've confessed our dilemma to each other. We're happy. People are inspired to begin again in 2019. And we are quietly looking forward to when people give up on their resolutions so that there'll be more space in class again. It's not easy to begin over again and again and again in love with life, because love and life themselves get in the way. Or as my mother and I like to say to each other, we'd certainly be saints full of grace if it weren't just for all the other people. And so we begin again, day after day, with or without love, often finding ourselves judging or feeling judged, criticizing or feeling criticized, demanding or denying our needs. All the while knowing that, as Rabbi Fitzgerman writes, beyond the world of borders and boundaries lay the luscious possibilities of cross-fertilization and sharing. That's grace. When walls come tumbling down and luscious, previously unimagined possibilities in our lives appear. So back to our question this morning. What gets in the way of you beginning again in love? What gets in the way of grace in your life? Grace being, as Marlon explained last week, something, a loving presence, perhaps a cosmic consciousness, a peace that passes understanding, something that is always and everywhere available if we are only open to it. A story about a tiger named Mohini might help us understand what those walls are made of. Mohini was a wondrous white tiger, and she lived for many years at the Washington, D.C. National Zoo. Mohini lived in the lion house, much like the one here at the Tulsa Zoo, in a 12 by 12-foot cage with iron bars and a cement floor. Far from the savannas of Africa, she spent her days pacing restlessly, relentlessly, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. She didn't know that the owners of the zoo, the staff, and several biologists, with the encouragement of some animal rights activists, were working on creating a natural habitat for her. But they were. And the new natural habitat covered several acres of ground. It had grass and trees and bushes and hills and rocks and even a pond. It took years to design and develop and build. So all the humans involved were terribly excited when they were finally able to release Mohini into her new natural habitat. But it was too late. Mohini moved through her new environment with uncertainty, even fear, until she found a protected corner of the compound, where she started to pace again, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And she stayed there, wearing through the grass to the shallow dirt. She stayed there in the corner of her many-acre compound until she died. Most of us know or love or have someone in our lives who is like Mohini. someone who can't imagine life beyond the old boundaries and borders of their lives, beyond the old marriage or the old job or the old weight or the old drinking habit. Both the fixed past and the unpredictable future become walls or limitations in our lives, seeming to dictate what is and what is not possible for us. The Berlin Wall, which was torn down in 1989, was vast. It was 96 miles long. It was frightening, laced with mines, dotted with soldiers trained to shoot without asking questions. And it was also far more powerful than a physical barrier, because it produced what East Germans called the wall in the head. The omnipresent belief that there was no escape, that there was no hope. Those invisible walls can be even more frightening and forceful than the cement, stone, steel, and concrete walls we create. And it isn't easy to begin again, because the bars holding us back are more often made from emotions than from metal. They are more often constructed of feelings and thoughts and actions, like the ones we said and heard just a few minutes ago. The bars are built from our silence, keeping us apart, feeling alone. The walls are built from our self-judgment, keeping us apart, feeling alone. The walls are built from our anger, from our comparing ourselves to each other, from our greed, keeping us apart, feeling alone. Most of us have been there, stuck in a corner of our lives, comfortably or uncomfortably, unable to find the door to the wondrous, lush, life-giving green habitat that is our birthright and true home. My good friend Katie and her dad were there a few months ago. Katie's dad went into the hospital at 90 for pain in his shoulder. But he'd been driving and going to the gym his usual 3 times a week just the week before, so no one was overly concerned. Although when Katie had been late with his birthday present a few months earlier, he had said jokingly, "You better send it soon." When she remembered that, she decided to go down to Virginia, where she had grown up, in a strict conservative Christian family. Her father, too, had been raised by a strict Christian father, so that his sisters married preachers, and he and his brothers married good Christian women, as he liked to say. He had remained religiously and socially conservative his whole life, while Katie, my friend, moved north to live and raise her family, choosing a more open, philosophical approach to religion and a more liberal position on political and social issues. When Katie arrived at the hospital, she found her dad weak, on oxygen, kind of incoherent, not eating. He was hallucinating doors in the ceiling. He dreamed about being on a mountaintop in Lexington. And he asked Katie if he needed a permit to go. Katie called, and her daughter Emma decided to come down to see her grandpa. His other children came too. And one day, he started to talk about how he had been raised to think there was only one right way, and all those other people were wrong. But that now he believed there are lots of different ways to be spiritual, and you just don't know what's right for everybody. Then he laughed and said, "All your lives I've been trying to convert you kids, and in the end, you converted me." Then with tears in his eyes, he added, "It's hard to change." Katie affirmed his claim that it was hard to change. and said just the fact that he was able to say the things he was saying was a big, big change. Then she asked him to look into his granddaughter's Emma's eyes so he could see how much she loved him. He did for a minute, and then whispered, "That's scary." Then they sang songs together. Her dad singing along to, "I come to the garden alone," and "Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you. I will never forsake you. I will never forget you." The next day, the whole family gathered together into a big room to share lunch. They wheeled Katie's dad in and asked him what he wanted. But he was tired. He said he couldn't really think clearly, but he agreed that singing again would be nice. And when the singing was finished, he said, "You asked me what I wanted from y'all, but is there anything you want from me?" And there was a silence, a long silence. Katie doesn't think he had ever thought about or asked that question of his children before. So after a very long while, Katie said, "I want your blessing, Dad." And her dad looked at his daughter for a moment. Then he slowly put his hand to his forehead and said a silent prayer. "It's really all I ever wanted from my father," Katie said. "And that was the last time I saw him alive." I'm surprised the walls of the hospital room didn't come crashing down in that moment of grace. The feelings, thoughts, and actions that build up walls in our minds and our hearts, the walls that keep grace and love and hope out, are all too familiar to most of us. But what brings those walls down? If we don't want to miss out on this amazing experience, which is always available but also clearly avoidable, isn't there anything we can do? We can practice being compassionate with ourselves. Compassionate self-acceptance is a doorway to grace. Compassionate, kind, even radical self-acceptance of all that we are and all that we feel is a doorway to experiencing grace. In her book entitled Self-Compassion, psychologist Kristin Neff tells this story about herself. A couple of years after getting a job at the University of Texas, Austin, I gave birth to a beautiful little boy named Rowan. At 18 months, we knew there was something wrong with him. He wasn't pointing, didn't turn his head, didn't call me mama, didn't call me anything at all, Neff writes. He would spend hours obsessively lining up his toy animals, and he would tantrum violently at the drop of a hat. I'd known parenthood would be hard, but not this hard. Why couldn't I stop his disruptive behavior? Was it because I was a bad mother? Neff did wonder whether her son had developmental disorders, taking him to all sorts of specialists, reading all sorts of books. She did everything except seriously investigate if Rowan showed signs of autism. Whatever's wrong with Rowan, she thought, there's no way that this adorable, charming, funny child could be autistic. And one day, as Neff was packing for a meditation retreat with a focus on self-compassion, she sat down at the computer and typed in autism early signs of. The page said if your child showed 3 out of 10 signs, he should be checked out. Rowan showed 9 out of 10. Lack of eye contact was the only one he didn't have. At that moment, I knew Rowan was autistic, Neff writes. I called my husband and I told him. I'll cancel my retreat, she said. No, you should go, he said, you need it. And I'll need you to be strong and centered when you get back. So for the next 4 days, she quite literally sat with the pain of knowing her son was autistic. How can this be happening? Is Rowan slipping away from us? How are we going to cope? She thought repetitively as she mentally paced back and forth in her mind. Then, she writes, I allowed myself to fully feel my fear and my grief. I gave myself as much loving kindness and compassion as I could. If a guilty thought would creep in, how? How can I be grieving for Rowan when I love him so much? I wouldn't allow myself to run away with that self-judgment. My feelings of grief were only natural, something all parents in such situations go through. When she got back from the retreat, Neff and her husband had to deal with the fact that this was now their life. All their dreams of having the perfect son, that he would get a PhD like his mom, that he would become a writer like his dad, flew out of the windows. I freely admit, she continues, that at times the experience pushed me into self-pity. At the park, watching other moms with their kids, I would start to feel sorry for myself. Why can't I have a normal child? Why are the other kids making faces at how weird he's doing? I found myself internally screaming, having children is not supposed to be this way. This is not the plan I signed up for. Why me? But self-compassion saved me from going too far down that path. I would remember that I was human like everybody else, and remind myself that most families had difficulties raising their kids. I would look at the other families at the park and remember that they had their troubles too. Then, instead of feeling poor me, I would try to open my heart to all parents everywhere who were trying to do their best in challenging circumstances. 2 things would happen then. First, I would begin to feel deeply in touch with the unpredictability of being human. My heart would swell up with tenderness for all the challenges and sorrows, and also for all the joy and love and wonder children bring us. And the second thing would happen, I would begin to remember that being human is not about being one way. It's about being as life creates you, with your own particular strengths and weaknesses, gifts and challenges, quirks and oddities. By accepting and embracing the entirety of the human condition, I could better accept and embrace Rowan, and also my role as the mother of an autistic child. Beyond the world of borders and boundaries, the luscious, previously unimagined possibilities in our lives lay. That's grace, when walls come tumbling down. And we don't have to wait until life goes the way we want it to, or until others respond to us with the care and compassion we want, in order to feel worthy of love, in order to accept love, and in order to love others back without holding back. We simply have to be kind to ourselves, to accept that we are human too, and to let ourselves mindfully feel all our feelings. You are worthy right now. Grace is here right now. And so many walls are ready to come down right now. I want to leave you with a helpful tool, a practice of sorts, a mantra, if you will. When you are feeling uncomfortable feelings this week, feelings you would like to push away, maybe painful feelings, any of those feeling states we forgave ourselves for a little while ago, guilt, grief, regret, anger, frustration, shame, hurt, humiliation. Try saying these 4 sentences to yourself. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. You can say the words silently, you can say them aloud, you can adapt them so they fit you even better. You can say them as many times as you need to in any given moment. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. With practice, no matter what you have done or left undone or what has been done to you, you will actually feel ready to begin again in love with others and yourself long, long before you take your last breath. May it be so. Amen. You're visiting with us online today. We love connecting with people all across the country and around the world, sharing our powerful message of love beyond belief.
There's something new happening here. You can now join All Souls as a virtual member. Our virtual membership is designed for friends who live outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who want to engage with All Souls in a meaningful way.
You can be part of an expanding family, a global family really, wherever you are. If you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
or Orange County, California,
Canada,
or Cameroon. By becoming a virtual member, you'll be able to deepen your connections with members and friends here in Tulsa and with members wherever you are.
Each week, you'll receive special All Souls content tailored for you, our virtual members. Virtual members have access to pastoral care, to personal prayers, and also receive invitations to exclusive web events.
You can learn more, and if you're ready, you can become a virtual member today by visiting allsoulschurch.org/virtual membership.
We're grateful our ministries are having a positive impact on your life, and we want to share the good news of love beyond belief with more and more people. So no matter what, we need your support to keep this ministry growing and thriving, so please consider making a gift today. You can do so by texting
Love BB for Love Beyond Belief to 73256, or simply visit our website. You are a blessing in our lives. May you be blessed.
And be a blessing.